Hello and welcome to a new edition of True Audiophiles. My name's Jim Carter. So before I get too into my video for the week, I am going to just, as I usually do, go over kind of the new releases or new pickups I got for the week. There wasn't a whole lot of new stuff that came out, so I really wasn't interested in much of it. But what I did get was I got the soundtrack to Soul, which this one is specifically just the jazz portion of the Soul soundtrack, and also it actually has 3 covers that John Baptiste, who is from The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, he's his music director basically, and he's a jazz musician. He's got a few albums out. I think he's Grammy nominated. But anyways, there's 3 tracks that are covers that are kind of were inspiration for the album, for the not just the album but the movie. Epistrophe, which I believe is Thelonious Monk. I Let a Song Go Out of My Head, I'm not sure who that is. And then Blue Rondo a la Turk, which is oh, I can't believe I'm not remembering who it is. But anyways, I'll put it up on the screen when when I edit this. But anyway, so this is the jazz only part of the soundtrack, because there's also a soundtrack released that might have some of the stuff from this, but also has essentially the Trent Reznor and Atticus, I can't remember his name, that collaborates with him now, part of the soundtrack as well. But if you haven't watched Soul, it's a really awesome, really awesome movie, especially if you like music and you like Pixar. Anyways, I also got a classic vinyl series reissue, The Song from My Father, Horace Silver Quintet, and from Vinyl Me Please, I got McCoy Tyner Sahara, which is a kind of an audiophile level reissue, cut by Sterling, and I believe pressed at QRP, if I'm not mistaken. Oh yeah, pressed at QRP. So I'm excited to check that one out. I've actually never even heard of this album, so pretty excited to hear it and see what it's all about. So today, as you know by the title, I am going to go over Stevie Ray Vaughan, Couldn't Stand the Weather, but most specifically, it's more of a review of the One Step that just came out. And I think if you've seen my release, you've already seen, I have number 262. I gotta get a new bag for this one. It's broken. Don't know why. I figured I'd throw this in here because I realized that I've done a couple of videos with One Steps in it, and I wanted to kind of familiarize people with one-step process for those who don't know, and other companies are actually starting to do this process as well. But anyways, for the MoFi one-steps and others to a certain extent, they basically shorten the amount of steps being done to create the vinyl, so you get hopefully a more accurate representation of what's on the master tapes. It explains it actually in an insert that they give you with every single one of the one steps. And basically what you can see here is your traditional record. They actually make a lacquer, which is when they cut the vinyl. Then they make what's called a father and a mother. So they can make several different batches of the vinyl, and then the stamper. So basically with the one step, you have a lacquer and what they call a convert. So again, less steps, as you can see. It's essentially just one step from the lacquer to the vinyl, as opposed to the 3 steps that you have on a traditional vinyl. Now, the downside to that is you cannot, from my understanding anyways, and if anybody knows differently, please correct me. I would love to know. But my understanding is you can't get as many pressings out of that convert that they do for the one step, and once it's done, it's done. So I think you have to do several cuts of lacquer to make a, especially if you're doing more than, say, 2,500 or more. Because initially when they first made them, like like the Santana Abraxas record, that only had 2,500 copies made. And that was because they made one lacquer. And the 2,500 was as many records as they wanted to produce out of that pressing, out of that convert or stamper. So they've since started making, my assumption is, more cuts that are the same to make more stampers so they can create more records. Like this one is a batch of, I think it's 7,000. The most I've seen, I want to say, is like 9,000, but they're typically in that you know, 6,000 to 7,500 range. So that's an explanation of the one steps. Also, what comes with the one step in this particular case, and all of them really, is they kind of give you a thick stock picture of the original album with the original master recording on the top, and then the back cover as well. And when it comes to, they're 2 LPs because they're 45 RPM. One last thing that I forgot to mention on the one steps, and it's a relatively new addition over the past few one steps, is they actually use a different formulation of vinyl too. They call it a super vinyl. It's just a higher quality vinyl that helps cut down on, I believe, the static, but more importantly, surface noise. And there is virtually no, well, I don't want to say virtually no, but there's probably the least amount of surface noise I've heard on vinyl since those Japanese JVC vinyl that came out back in the 70s and early 80s, that especially a lot of the early MoFis were actually pressed on. So I wanted to make sure and bring that up too, because I wanted to give full disclosure on what some of the advantages of the one steps were. So back to your regular scheduled programming. And they come in some kind of nice looking sleeves. So you've got this with, gold MoFi and LP1, and then the album artwork, and then in the back it's all gold type with the tracks that are on here. So it's basically, it's 2 records of that. So as you can see, it is like that. So just figured I'd chime in to give you a little bit more in-depth information about the one step, since this video is probably going to be kind of short anyways. So back to your normal scheduled programming. But anyways, I really didn't have a whole lot of stuff to compare it to. I really wish I had the Analogue Productions version, the 45 RPM. But I know the big reason, one of the big reasons why I didn't buy it was back when I was not buying as much vinyl, I had the SACD MoFi version of Couldn't Stand the Weather, and I also, and when I started buying audiophile vinyl, or more audiophile vinyl, this one had already been announced, and I had already pre-ordered it. So I had to wait 2.5 years or so to get it, but it finally came out. But that's a big reason why I didn't buy the AP. For the purposes of this video, I kind of wish that I did buy it, but I have 1 or 2. I think I have one Stevie Ray Vaughan 45 RPM from Analogue Productions, which sounds good, although it's a little bit noisy, which I was kind of surprised about. And then I also have a standard 33 RPM by them as well, of a Stevie Ray Vaughan title. And they did great jobs on them, but I just don't have Couldn't Stand the Weather. Anyway, so I have that, and then I have this sort of beat up copy of Couldn't Stand the Weather, and this is an early pressing. It's not a first pressing, but it's a pretty early on in the process. It might be like a second pressing or so. But anyways, it's kind of beat up, but I cleaned it up, and it played all right. And as a matter of fact, I tested Cold Shot and Tin Pan Alley for this A/B comparison, which those seemed to be the cleanest also on this record that I have, this older copy, and also probably were some of the better ones to test for sound stage and clarity and things like that. So that's part of the reason why I went that route also. So I mean, overall, I don't think it's any surprise that the one step, I feel, definitely overall had the better EQ balance, and it also had deeper sound stage. The early US version did have a little bit better snap to like the snare and things like that. I think that might have to do with just maybe they put a little more compression into it when they mastered it. That might be part of the reason. I think there may have also been kind of an upper mid-range boost to it as well, or kind of mid-range boost. Because I think they compressed it a little bit, that's only my guess here, or a little bit more than the one step anyways. The early US seemed to be kind of more in your face, less dynamic, and as I had mentioned, there was a deeper sound stage to the one step. So that was part of the reasoning for that deeper sound stage, I think. With the early US, everything just seemed to be more mushed together. There wasn't as much separation on the instruments and the playing on it. So, I mean, overall, I liked the snare sound on the original, their early pressing, if you will. But everything else I liked better on the one step. So that is my take on the new Couldn't Stand the Weather one step. If you can afford it, and if you can still get one, My guess is it's going to probably be one of the better ones, if not the better one, best one to get out there. If you want to save some money, I've heard a lot of great things about the 45 RPM AP. I think that the one step is probably going to retain its resale value, if that's something that you even can think about, though, for down the road. And it's just an awesome, awesome record, though. And, you know, if you like Stevie Ray Vaughan and you really, really like that album, it's pretty hard to go wrong with it. So, love to hear your take on it. Please make some comments down below. Let me know what you think, especially if you have the one step and the Analogue Productions 45 RPM version. If you liked this video, please subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. I'm trying to shoot for that 1,000 subscribers, and I'm getting closer and closer. If you liked the video, please like it. If you want to know when my new videos come out, please hit that alert bell, and it'll let you know when my new videos come out, which is usually Saturdays, but sometimes I might switch it up every now and then. So that is everything I've got for today. Thank you very much, and you have an awesome day.